Hi, everyone. This is Peter Hernandez, and this is The Core Truth. And today I have Julia Spillman, the brains behind Eklund Gomes. Julia, welcome to The Core Truth.
Hey Peter, I feel like the core truth. I feel like it's like an investigation. I'm on like the stand in a
Oh,
trial. So
maybe I better rethink the name. That's interesting.
no, I think sometimes maybe we need to be put on the stand. So I'm not mad at it.
We have to find new ways to get together and just can't just do podcasts. We have to actually see each other in person soon.
I know. I'm actually headed out there. I believe I actually just, you know how much of a crazy planner I am. I just color coded September, October, and November schedules of what cities I'm in, what major events, so we can kind of plan and program around that. So I believe, according to the schedule, I think I'm there at the end of September.
Great. Well, that'd be wonderful to see you. I can't wait.
Yeah, yeah,
We can
same.
hang out. That'd be wonderful. So let's just dig right in. And first thing I want to kind of dig into is this whole concept of leadership and growth. And you've been called the mastermind of Eklund Gomes, which is kind of a fun title.
Yeah.
And you've expanded. I think what's really remarkable is I believe this to be true. You are the first team that kind of
For sure.
expanded beyond communities. Like maybe a team would go from New York to the Hamptons and do
Hmm.
those two markets or
Yep.
whatever, but you actually cross state lines.
Oh yeah, we
And this
went
kind of
nationwide.
expansion, I think you just opened up a whole new concept for teams. So tell me about what is the strategic decision that enabled you to actually scale that way and to scale so wide and far? I mean, to
Mhm.
scale nationally. Talk about that a little bit with us.
I mean, I think where it really started was seeing how much of the referral business was going out. Now, again, at that time, this was, gosh, what was this? 20 end of 2017, kind of beginning of 2018. So, the Elements and the other brokerages had those referral networks, but they weren't quite as like tweaked to where they are now. And we kind of saw handing out a big referral, especially again as these wealthy individuals started going all over the US. And this was right before COVID. And then of course COVID just exploded that. So it kind of became almost our fear of handing out referrals. And we have some of the best referral partners across the US. Now, luckily, those referral partners, most of them actually became teammates. So now that we're doing it together, but say we sent out someone to, an LA before we had the team, you're taking one of your in your business biggest assets and completely making a blind introduction and hoping it goes well. And yes, the monetary aspect of it is a big piece, but when you really think about it, that referral relationship could really damage the main relationship. So I think it almost became this fear of, as you know, I was a banker before. And when I was at Merrill Lynch, one of the things that we worked really hard on was keeping everything within Merrill Lynch. We wanted them to have Merrill Lynch credit cards. We wanted them to have Merrill Lynch asset lines. Everything needed to be within the bank. And obviously that was done for a reason, because the second that, say, a UBS had access to them for a product line, then they could also introduce all of their other product lines. And for us, it kind of became this thing of like, how do we keep the client as close and tight to us as humanly possible? So instead of sending it to someone that, yes, we enjoy working with, we have a great relationship with, but we don't know how they run their business. And as you can probably tell, like, we're a little bit of like control freaks, I think, in the best way. So being able to control the client interaction, the client experience, and most importantly, the client result and keep it in-house became more and more important as these wealthy individuals started to have a home in New York. Then they wanted a place in LA. They have a place in the Hamptons, they're thinking about Aspen, they have a home in Miami. It just kind of became obvious, if we really are going to service these clients, not as one-off interactions or transactions, but think of ourselves really as private bankers of the real estate world, we have to be where they are. It just became really, really obvious.
Well, I think that's the point is you want to be where your clients are. So
Yep.
what states did you actually open in?
Yep. So we started with you guys, of course, in LA,
Yeah.
then went to Miami, Then we followed that by the Hamptons, Texas, and then of course, have kind of spread a little bit. LA went to Orange County, Dallas and Austin. Then of course, we really are all of South Florida, including now Naples, and then Hamptons, and of course we have New York, but we also do a lot in Brooklyn. So those markets have expanded within that. We also do have Vegas. Most of Vegas is a little bit more coming soon, but we do have a presence and of course license there as well.
That's interesting. So are you satisfied with your footprint, or are you looking to grow it more?
I mean, I think that's a conflicting personal and professional. There's only, again, if you look at the color coded crazy calendar, there's only so many days in a month. There's only so many hours in a day. We have our eye on a couple of things. Now, of course, for our business, it has to make sense to go to another city because, of course, as you know best, if you're giving up a little time here to go somewhere else, what type of market share are you potentially giving up? So the only way that those numbers make sense for us, because we get amazing brokers across the US emailing, messaging, texting daily about, hey, we'd love for you guys to come here, we'd love for you to come there. Unless there is a wonderful kind of marquee new development that we can anchor ourselves around, the expansion typically doesn't make sense.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting because two things are going on here. One is that you have to be super selective, I think, about the agents and people you bring into your company. So
Mhm.
so what do you look for when you're like somebody says, "Hey, let's just say it's me. Hi, Julia, I'd love to join Eklund Gomes." What would you try to get from me to see whether I was a good fit or not?
Well, I'll use a great example. We just hired someone in New York, and I was up there a couple of weeks ago and interviewed this individual. For me, a lot of things start at the way that they actually do the outreach. And, I always say, like, this is something good for newer agents to really be taking notes on. It's very obvious when someone is cutting and pasting and sending out to multiple teams. No team wants to feel like they're one of the teams that they're talking to. They want to feel like this is the team that this individual wants to be on. So I think as personalized and powerful and straight to the point that they can be. I'm also, as everybody knows, I'm such a numbers geek. So really showing statistics and growth. It doesn't have to be, oh, I'm producing $1 million. It has to be, here's my numbers, a couple years in the business. Here's the experience I have. And most importantly, here's the trajectory that I'm on. But I know that that's going to be moved faster, by obviously coming on board with you guys. So it has to show the ability to, again, with their business to scale and grow as well within our platform. I'm very big on kind of like, what is their story? And again, with this individual, it really was the story of, I'm so proud of what I've done and the hustle to get to where I am. And he was about 400,000 in GCI, which is obviously great production numbers. And he's like, I've hit a wall, but I know I can get on a rocket ship and take it to space with you guys. And the fact that he really showed again what he was able to do on his own and also acknowledged that he had hit a bit of a plateau and that he knows that joining a team is really what's going to take him to the next level faster. So I loved the honesty, I love the transparency in numbers. So for me, that was an immediate grab that, get in front of them, and that individual is starting. We're actually working on the onboarding paperwork. He just got off a call with our team. I mean, I'm looking at my clock, 50 minutes ago. So for me, that is a no-brainer. And I think why that person is of interest is around that like 4 to 6 year mark, and they're producing, but they know that they've kind of hit a wall. They're going to really value us first and foremost, and they're going to really lean in early on. But that's the perfect type of agent that we know, okay, for this individual, they haven't been able to get over the $4 or $5 million price point. Clearly, with those numbers and transactions, they know what they're doing. So now we just need to help by putting them on listings that are in the 6, 7, $8 million mark to work on, because you know how it is with these sellers. They just want to hear, oh, yes, I just sold XYZ down the street for $6 million. So it doesn't mean you have to do 30 of those, but you have to have done one. So because we have so many listings, we have such a large team in all of our markets, there is the ability to work on things that would be maybe just a little bit outside of their average price point, but very attainable in the sense of they 100% have the skill set and the experience to get there fast.
So team leaders that are watching, how would you love agents that are already earning 400,000 GCI to want to be part of your team? I mean, let's be honest. I mean, I hate to say it, but most of you team leaders out there are getting people that haven't earned anything yet that are hoping the crumbs are going to fall off the table. This is somebody actually bringing something to Eklund Gomes that Eklund Gomes is going to now take and make greater. So here's the question. Tell me the value prop for this agent joining Eklund Gomes.
I mean, again, I think with anything, and people always say, oh, well, because you guys are Eklund Gomes, the numbers are this or the numbers are that. And I always say, like, I get what people are saying, but if you really like just dive into the numbers, it's really just scaling it down to what, like you said, it's a 100,000 GCI producer coming to a smaller team. So it's all actually very relative, because what we're just doing on mass scale. We're not doing anything different because we're so big. We're just so big. So the multiplication just works out where the math is so much larger. So I always say when I talk about stuff, I really am saying the same things that if you're running a rental team in Kansas City, you can 100% apply these things. Now, of course, it's not going to be a $400,000 GCI producer that's interested, but that doesn't mean that they're not doing really great numbers and great volume, that you're going to have something to offer them. And I think a lot of times team leaders want this plug and play. They want someone to just jump in and be self-sufficient. But then, quite frankly, if you think about so many leaders across the industry, agents want time with these leaders. And I think we have done a wonderful job. And obviously, so many of my agents really investing in them. And, I'm going to give a great shout out to Marcy Roth, who you very much endorsed for our team. And I think at that time she was doing 2 to 250,000 maybe in GCI. And now she's consistently one of our top producers and has been producing over $1 million year after year after year. But she worked alongside lockstep with Frederick. And even though, again, we're at the top of the game, thank goodness, that doesn't mean that we don't have to mentor and grow these individuals, even if they're already great producers, very much so in their own right.
Yeah, I mean, it takes Frederick and John and you away from your business, so that you have to actually take time for these people. And great that you brought up Marcy. I was going to bring her up too. I remember my meeting with her, and I remember her talking about it, and I thought it was such a great idea. And she has blossomed.
Oh my gosh.
Under you guys, and it's so exciting to see that, and it's exciting to see for her, because we all saw it in her. We knew she had it, and she knew the people and everything. So that's really great.
But I think, Peter, and this is something that you and I share a love of, that for me is the most exciting thing about work, is especially as a woman with someone like Marcy, to see her as a great agent, as a skilled agent, as an experienced agent, and to be able to help open a door that was open for me, many years before her, and to be able to watch her grow and blossom and all the things that, I think at the end of the day, me, John, and Fred are so proud of, like, the numbers and the teams and the rankings and all the things, but it's the people and the experience and really being able to do this together with them. And, I always say, like, probably the biggest disadvantage anybody has in my life is knowing me as Julia today. I think everybody, and obviously you're one of them, that knew me before I really was able to, like, prove myself and create all of this, is the more interesting story. And, like, watching the growth trajectory and the hard work and the hustle, because I think a little bit, and I love Instagram obviously for so many reasons, but I think what's a bit dangerous of it is you kind of see the end result or the falsified end result. You don't really see all the hustle. And you did some great marketing and beautiful pieces for this piece, and of course I put them on my Instagram, and somebody replied to me last night. He said, are you always hair done and ready to go and always doing the most. And I said, it was a friend of mine. So I sent a picture back and I was still in the office in practically my pajamas. And I said, if people really actually saw what really was going on the day to day, I mean, the one would be definitely more interesting than any of these shows. But I think that's the hard part is people don't see the hard work
Mhm.
from here to getting to here.
Mhm.
And then most importantly, staying here.
Yeah.
I remember when I was actually in LA, I came out and you guys were doing the $1 million listing when Tracy and the Altmans were joining the show. So I came out to support Tracy and some friends out there. And I remember I just became the CEO at that time. So I got in the car after that event to go to dinner with my mentor. And, in my mind, I still had like all the congratulation balloons like swimming around me.
Mhm.
And he said, well, what's your plan? What's your initiatives? What's kind of like, what are you thinking? And I'm just like glowing. And he said, I hate to bust your bubble, but just because you're Eklund Gomes doesn't mean you don't start at zero like everybody else. And it has stuck with me so much. I mean, it literally all the balloons popped in the car immediately, but it's such a good
Yeah,
reminder.
that's
And I
true.
think something we really champion that just because this was the greatest year means nothing on next
Yeah.
year. And we
No, it's
have
true.
to reinvent ourselves personally and we have to reinvent ourselves professionally
Every year,
every year.
maybe more often than every year,
Every
just to stay
year.
relevant. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, no, it's not easy for sure. So tell me about like real quickly, like how you fit into the organization. What do you do? What does John do? What does Frederick do? How do you guys work together? And
Yeah.
if you can weave into that, how you tentacle out to all the regions you're in and who
Yeah.
shares what, who does what, and how do you coordinate your travel, all that. I mean, that's a huge question, but maybe you can
Yeah.
like distill
Well,
it down.
it definitely takes a village. First and foremost, we have an amazing, amazing team. And as I always say, there's Julia, John, and Frederick, but Julia, John, and Frederick aren't anything without Susie, our amazing COO, who just returned from maternity leave. Woo, that was a rough 4 months, but she's got a beautiful new baby boy, and she's
Wow.
back and somehow even better than ever. It's like she came in, jumped on Excel, and was right back at it. And I think for us, like we have such an amazing, amazing team. But how I came into the fold was about 10 years ago. I was selling a project with them in the financial district, which is where I had really worked I was on a large team there. I know Ariel Cohen very well, but was
Mhm.
with him for about 5 years, came over to John and Fred to do the One Seaport project. And it was so interesting because we kind of realized, and Susie was our contract admin at the time. So it's been the four of us now for literally almost 10 years, which is crazy. But we realized that we all were so interested in different things. I am not known for my marketing. I couldn't do a floor plan if my life depended on it. I probably don't even know the difference between real wood and fake wood in a development. But I know the business and I know the strategy and I know how to scale. And, Susie was the perfect sidekick and duo for me because, she just became this like Excel wizard and she's so good with the operations. And our focus really was the building the infrastructure because John and Frederick at that time were these huge players, but it was raw talent. The first day that I started with them, I was officially the ninth agent on the Eklund Gomes team. There wasn't a Dropbox. I remember opening a filing cabinet and like checks fell out and nobody knew what was. I mean, there was offering plans. I mean, it was wild. And the fact
Yeah.
that they had done that type of business without really having a back of house operations business was was wild. I mean, impressive and complete madness. So Susie and I came in and really created this juggernaut that they had into an actual business. Now, obviously, we had Frederick on $1 million listing. We had these exciting new developments. John is like, I mean, he's like the billionaire broker of all billionaire brokers. And
Mhm.
we really took all of it and made it into projections and financial modeling and organization and a support team and coupled with of course our amazing partnership with Douglas Elliman, we kind of said, okay, we love this, but I think we could kind of do in-house XYZ a little different. So we created our own branding, our own marketing. We had a collaboration between PR houses. So we really made it a brokerage within the brokerage. So a lot of my day is spent on, as I say, a little bit of everything. I mean, I've had a lot of people, even, I know we all have worked with Aaron Keith. A lot of people sometimes say I'm too involved.
Mhm.
I don't know if I believe that to be true, because I also want my team to always feel like I'm a peer. At no point, like, it's funny, one of our agents here in Miami always calls me boss. And I'm like, who are we talking about? And for me, I work for the agents, and I know you very much feel that as well. Like, it is my highest and best use to
Yeah.
support the agents. It's not for me to feel like I'm the top of an org chart. And quite frankly, one of the things that we put in place was an org chart that's actually a wheel. So Julia, John, Frederick, and Susie, yes, we're like the middle hubcap, but it's the spokes of the team and our support staff that make this thing go round. So I think we just see things a little bit different. We treat it a little bit more as a family mentality, but I think we all have very, very different things that we're focused on. Like for Susie, I mean, she's an incredible agent. She's a great shower and closer, but she loves being behind the scenes. And I'm kind of this interesting mix of front facing more in kind of a corporate political way, but then very much a support role to the agents. And probably my best and highest use is a little bit of John and Fred's manager. And and I think we've created something interesting, because everybody wants to have these big teams, but they want to wear all the hats. And I said that kind of gets you a little bit into the scenario of, jack of all trades, master of none. You cannot do everything.
Right.
I don't care how much of a multitasker you are, it's impossible. So I think
No.
that our model of allowing John and Fred to obviously be these great businessmen, because they own Eklund Gomes with me, but ultimately they're the star agents, and they're out there working with the developers and developing these buildings and finding new opportunities and doing these huge $1 million plus deals and everything, under and above. And then Susie and I are really running the business. If something happens, like, John and Fred should never even know that like forums exist. Like, they should just worry about the deals and all the things that have changed in our business. Yes, they should be aware of from like a legal standpoint and being mindful, but we should make it where the agent just sells. And I think that's what's became so difficult is, okay, is an agent nowadays an Instagram star? Are they an inspector? Are they the CPA of their own business? Are they the CMO? And I think that any time away from the deals is ultimately losing everybody money.
I agree with you. I totally agree with you. It's a beautiful strategy. And speaking of strategy, let's talk about a little bit about that strategy and innovation. What do you think was the pivoting moment or the pivoting strategy? I think you guys were probably the first team to break $1 billion in sales.
Yep, we were.
I'm almost positive of it.
Yep.
So let's just claim it. You guys were the first.
For sure.
Was there something that you did? Was there a
Yep.
strategy behind it that you think really got you over that $1 billion mark?
I will never, it's one of the funniest things ever. And I think back so often of like the early days, because I think it was just so interesting. It was also trying to figure out how we were all going to work together. And when I was doing One Seaport with them, they sent me over a registration list of everyone that had registered for the project. And now, mind you, I wasn't at this point the ninth agent on the team. I was a single agent. And, as I kind of felt doing my audition for them. And I said, okay, guys, we've gone through the entire list. We've essentially sold almost all the building. We sold that building in record time. And I said, I've made copious notes. You can tell I'm pretty organized, especially with Susie. And I said, who gets these now? I said, because there's so many individuals that wants to list a property. There's so many individuals that has to move now. And obviously this wasn't being delivered in another like 3-4 years. So I said, who on your team do I hand this over? Because ultimately at the end of the day, this is your project. And it was this big Excel sheet. And Fred was like, what are you talking about? So then I brought it up again. And I said, okay, guys, just, I know how this works. Like, who gets the Excel sheet? And Frederick was like, oh my gosh, you're so obsessed with this Excel. And I said, you guys are running one of the biggest businesses, but you really aren't. I don't want to say they're not interested in resales. They just weren't focused on it. And most importantly, they didn't really see the connection between the two. Because when I was with Ariel, he did such a great job of being on a sales team for a building and never leaving the building. I mean, that man, it was 15 years ago that I worked with him, and he's still the number one selling agent at multiple of those buildings. But John and Fred weren't focused on the resale. So I said, what if you let me, as part of this, because we're trying to kind of figure out how we could work together. I said, why don't you let me start with like almost like building a resale business? Now, John and Fred, of course, had done like huge deals with like Sarah Jessica Parker's Townhouse, J-Lo, all these amazing individuals. But the team was really focused on new dev. They weren't focused on both businesses, which we know is typically the complete opposite. So we built out this huge resale business. And that's when we really went from me being the ninth agent to bringing Susie on board, bringing on numerous agents, many of which, Adam Widener, one of the biggest agents in New York, Ryan Stinto, one of the biggest agents in New York. Like, we brought on all these powerhouses that, I mean, at the time had great numbers, but we created them together, and they worked on not only our resale business, but on our new developments. So we created this, the ultimate strategy was, as a banker, how do we become a diversified portfolio? John and Fred's business was 85% New York new development at the time. So the second something shifts, we've got a problem. So we built the resale arm. And then once that was intact and we felt very comfortable with the ability of them to service, then we scaled that. And then we went into other markets and took that exact model. And then for our agents, because people say, how do you guys keep these agents for so long? They've become these huge, I mean, the Pietro Belmontes, all of these big names.
Great agents.
They're amazing agents, but we're so lucky. I mean, the average agent has been with us for about 5 years. I've only been with the team for, about 9, coming up on 10 with Susie. And I think like that's our greatest pride is whatever their business was, we've given them another part of the business. And then we've given them a huge, huge referral business. So there's never a reason. Go on.
This is what I'm hearing, Julia. This is really kind of exciting for me is what I think you were trying to explain to Frederick and John was that we can't let anything fall through the cracks.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And so you had all these notes. So I think that led to you building out an amazing CRM.
Yes.
You customized, which just held everybody accountable.
Yeah. Oh, that CRM. We did a custom one with Salesforce. Oh my gosh, that almost was like the death of us. But, it really started because, again, they literally did not have a CRM at that point. Yeah. And it was kind of business 101. And every summer, now we didn't do it this summer because we had just done it, I think it was like the fall before, but we always do a back to basics because everybody wants to think, once I sell that $10 million property, then it's all going to change. None of it's changing. It's just a 10 million versus a 1 million. And yes, there's like a few things that are different, but at the end of the day, if you're not putting out your newsletter, if you're not doing mailers, if you're not touching base with your clients, I don't care if you're a financial advisor, I don't care if you're in sales for tech, like this is sales basic 101. And when you think that you're too good to do that stuff, someone's going to pick up those clients from you.
So I have on my board back here, I wrote, it's humbling to go back to basics or fundamentals.
Oh, I love that.
I think what happens is when we're in a really strong market, you guys particularly have so much coming at you, you don't have time sometimes to prospect because you're just dealing with this onslaught of business. And I know that happens to you. I know it. Yeah. But then when the market shifts or there's some political, socioeconomic event, something happens, it kind of pauses. Yeah. And it becomes very humbling when you've had all that just coming at you to now all of a sudden go, oh, you mean I got to call people again? And I see it all the time.
But here's where everybody gets twisted. if you just make this, and again, I have my own, like they all joke, I have my own like calendar organization issues. It's my real love language. But if you don't calendar that stuff and you don't stay accountable to the disciplines that you set early on in the business, at some point they're going to get you. So
Yep.
again, you can't, I don't care. One of the most touching things for me was when Kent Wu, he did the 118 million dollar deal with us at Central Park Tower. And during our awards night, he accepted the award and he said, guys, now I'm getting on a plane a day early because I've got to go service a rental client. It was a rental client referral that I want to say was like for $2,300 that ultimately gave him that opportunity to do that $100 million plus deal. And I think, again, it's once you cross that in your mind that like you don't have to do the rentals, you don't have to do the newsletters, you're too good for a mailer now, that next year is going to be a rough year on you, and then you're going to scratch your head and be
Yeah.
humbled and realize that ultimately you can't ever not do the basics. And I'm reporting from the other side of doing $4 billion. You can't ever stop doing the basics.
No, no. Let's talk about the market for a second.
Mhm.
You're in multiple markets, different regions, different states. What trends are you seeing right now? And what advice or what should agents pay attention to? I think it's a great question.
I think they should really pay attention to what's going on, of course, obviously in their market, but what's going on in the other markets. And because here's what's interesting. Everybody said to us, you guys can't do this expansion because what works for you in New York City doesn't work. And I said, I disagree with you, because what works in real estate sales works across the US. And what has accelerated that was COVID, because now we're all talking about the same buyer. Now, again, maybe this doesn't apply to, someone in, and I can say like a small town in Kentucky because that's where I'm from and getting ready to head to. But ultimately, everybody's seeing the exact same things on Instagram. Everybody's consuming, it seems like, the same videos on TikTok. We're watching the same shows. So the trends, mainly in the aspirational space, is actually the same. So that kind of thought of like, well, I'm in Austin, Texas, so that doesn't apply, in San Francisco. I'm calling BS on, because I think that
Yeah.
buyer is so worldly now, and that doesn't, we're not talking about billionaires. We're talking about people that, go on European vacations, are seeing the same things that, from like a trend standpoint, and then they're going back and they're seeing it on Instagram, then they're going to visit their friend in Miami and seeing it in their home or in a showroom. So I think that staying curious, especially if you're in a smaller market, of what's happening in the bigger markets,
Yeah, I
of course,
agree.
especially New York, it's all going to trickle down. It's just a matter of time. But to say that because of the access that buyers and sellers now have because of AI, because of social media, to think that they're not aware is incredibly naive on brokers' part.
Well, one thing that, and this is a little self-serving because I live in Malibu and we've gone through some like horrible events
Yeah,
with the
yeah.
fires, and my hometown Pacific Palisades is just decimated to the ground. But
Oof.
we're coming back fast. And what's
Yeah.
interesting is sales are booming in both Palisades and Malibu. And in Malibu recently, in the last 60 days, there was a 35, a 65, and just an $80 million sale closed.
Wow.
And what's interesting about Malibu is that there's more $100 million sales closed in Malibu. There was even a sale at like over 200 closed in Malibu.
Yeah.
So the high end seems to have a lot of energy right now. Are you seeing that in your other markets? And
Yeah,
what is that
definitely.
New York Malibu love affair? Because a lot of New Yorkers love Malibu.
I mean, how could you not? But I think that what is becoming the most interesting is, instead of having one giant home or one big asset, people want a piece of everything. And if you look at now how people travel, it used to be like one big 2-week vacation. People want all of these kind of more like exotic long weekends, and they want to travel all over and as much as they can. And I think that, again, COVID changed so much of it. So I think that, if you're in New York, you of course like are intrigued by Malibu. You may be intrigued by Austin, Texas. You're obviously intrigued by, Miami. So if you've got, let's say, $10 million to spend in real estate, why do one $10 million place in New York when you could spread that out? And I think, Frederick said it the best. So many people are starting to see real estate as art, and it's almost like a collection of homes that is like their
Mhm.
interpretation of collection of art pieces. And when you think of it, it really is so smart. John Gomes is a great example. He's like the king of the fantastic two bedroom. He has a beautiful two bedroom down here, very efficient size in Miami that he spends some time in. He's got a home in Connecticut. He's got, New York. And it's not about the big estates as much anymore. It's about how do we kind of live a little bit of everywhere.
Yeah,
And again, it goes back to it's a great diversification program.
it is. I mean, I think I kind of started with your kid goes to school somewhere else, so you buy them a place to stay rather than
Uh-huh.
rent,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you pay for their education through the appreciation of that asset.
Absolutely.
And so you're seeing all these ways where real estate is just permeating every aspect of our life. And now I love that. That's my new thing. I'm going to steal that from you. Real estate is a collection of art. That's
Yeah. Oh,
brilliant.
that's a Fred one. I can't claim that one. That was definitely
That's
a Fred
Frederick,
one.
huh? Well,
Yeah.
I'll give him credit because that is right on the money.
Yeah.
Um, let's see. We talked about how you keep your net worth clients. I think we're getting why you're a superwoman and a genius. But what would you describe as your superpower? If you had one
Oh,
superpower,
my
what would it be?
superpower is the multitasking. I'm being very good by not checking my phone and doing some emails and stuff while doing this. I definitely can. People joke that probably like my superhuman thing is I can sit at tables and hear multiple conversations while I'm texting and still talking. It's always fun to like jump into a conversation. It just like scares people. But I think that, you know, you've got to really have the discipline to do that. It's not something I learned in Kentucky growing up on a small farm. I'm incredibly disciplined. And I think that, and Peter, you and I have talked so much about the health stuff and the biohacking and just kind of like reinventing. And I think that you've got to always have a project for yourself that you're working on. And oddly enough, mine more lately has been now that everybody kind of sees me as like this, like, superhuman, actually becoming more real because I really struggled coming from a more corporate background, being more vulnerable. And I think, especially being a woman in this industry and kind of where I am, and now, being in my 40s, I think I've got to become more like real and approachable so that young women coming in realize that, yes, certain things are true and important, but it's really about the work ethic. It's about the discipline, and it's about overcoming obstacles. You and I have talked a lot about, a lot of my health struggles and really, the discipline that I had to have not only to overcome that, but to also in a way hide that while I was building,
Right.
and expanding. So
Right.
I think that as much again as I love Instagram, I think that it's a highlight reel. And I do wish, and I feel like people are being a little more transparent on it. It's something I'm still kind of struggling with. Um, but I do think that being more like real, vulnerable, and approachable is something that I'm really working on now.
Yeah, we don't have to be picture perfect, do we?
Yeah. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. Well, Julia, thank you so much. I could keep you going for another hour easily, but I don't want to do that to you because I know your phone's blowing up. So thank you so much for being on The Core Truth. It's really, really fun. It's really a pleasure. And I do hope you look me up in September when you come out because
Oh,
I would
definitely.
love
I'm
to
going to send
grab
you
a
some
coffee or
dates.
lunch with you. It would be really fun.
Definitely. We'll share some biohacking and then, of course, most importantly,
That's where I was going to
leadership.
go into next, but that we would be another 15, 20 minutes, and I can't do it to you. I have a whole bunch of new stuff that I'm doing right now.
Oh, I can't wait to hear. So yeah, so I'll be there right around my birthday. So I'll be even more focused on all the anti-aging stuff. So I'd love to grab a coffee with you, head out to Malibu and chat on all of that on a personal note.
Okay, great. Well, thanks everybody for joining The Core Truth. We'll see you soon.